Hey, folks, I want to talk about this for a second, which was a post on Instagram, of course, Mount Vernon's favorite place, and the favorite place for all white ethno nationalists to go ahead and sit with their comments and be safe with the lack of accountability for them. This is somebody who responded to an accountability post I made on a post of Mount Vernon's in which they are again whitewashing slavery. Here's the post. I'm not going to respond to its actual substance, but I actually want to talk about what it represents and get your thoughts on that. Again, you can go ahead and read it. It speaks for itself, I guess. But we can sort of cut to the chase, and it's a wonderful and beautiful place. Can we hold that fractious duality without making it zero sum? Again, this is sort of about my post about how you can't look at the garden at Mount Vernon or the beautiful gardens that are maintained at Colonial Williamsburg to great expense, or the beautiful gardens that are maintained at Monticello or any place like that, and look at them without seeing the brutality that caused them to be, the brutality that they in fact represent, and the people, the dehumanization and the oppression that they in fact represent. So it is like being in the garden of the commandant's house at Auschwitz or at Dachau or at Neuengamme. No different whatsoever. Maintained by people who were at forced labor until they died for a life sentence. And that's the thing that you must see instead of this fractious duality that enables us to really, really take in the beauty of the garden. No, I don't tend to entertain any of these things, but what happens often is that I receive these dissertations essentially from always white people. It's always white people. I receive these dissertations from white people who post. I don't respond to them that are just defensive. Now, black people, indigenous people, people of color do not respond in that way. Do not respond so defensively. Do not try to, defensively, do not try to defend George Washington and defend Mount Vernon. These are almost entirely of a particular demographic, and it's, to me, it's interesting in terms of our project of understanding how this identity is represented through digital media and how these places give safe spaces to these ethno-nationalists to just perpetuate this idea of that we can embrace in that poster's words, fractious duality. After 200 years of a historiography that is entirely dominated by white, comfortable history, that now apparently those of us who care about a holistic, intersectional history need to just be satisfied with pushing the needle in order to enable a broader conversation. That just tokenism, essentially, is something that we should be happy with, while the dominant narrative continues to dominate. The idea being, well, we just need to, why can't we just accept the dominant narrative and appreciate that at the same time that we allow in the possibility that these great men had feet of clay? Because that in terms of discourse, all that continues to do is continues to dominate, right? It's understandable for people to want to celebrate the achievements of the American Revolution. I don't agree with it, but I can understand it. But a true celebration requires just a tad bit of honesty, or else this is just jingoism. It's not ethno-nationalism. Because George Washington, any of those folks aren't mythical heroes, right? They're flawed. They're flawed men. But what did they build? They built a nation founded on oppression. You want to celebrate that? Ignoring that doesn't diminish their accomplishments. It distorts them. It celebrates something that never happened. They built a nation on a foundation of oppression. So we can appreciate their contributions while acknowledging the human costs of their choices. So, let's just sort of be clear about this. The greatness of America wasn't built by the founding fathers. It was built by and on the backs of enslaved people who toiled without any of the freedom that the other guys loved to talk about. That the minority of people leading the country then and leading the country now, but the minority of people leading the country then talked about all the time, but denied to the people who are doing all of the nation building. Those are the people who deserve to be part of our national narrative, to have a central part in our national narrative. So I don't see it as tearing down heroes. I think that's an unprofitable discussion to even talk about these people as heroes at all. It's about creating a more complete and understanding of our actual past, of our history. And when we do that, maybe then we can move forward as a nation that grapples with actual complexities in which we are living up to principles that we in fact hold, that we can celebrate, I don't know, students who are exercising their right to free speech, and to dispute the positions of government as loudly and and as vigorously as they can. Then we can strive to build a future that lives up to ideals that are, if you want to read them into the revolutionary documents, you can. I think it's more interesting to go ahead and derive them from who we are today and what we have learned in the 200 years since, what we have learned from understanding what the dangers of extremism can actually cause. And the importance, therefore, of a kind of democracy that the people who wrote those documents not only wouldn't have understood, but opposed then and would oppose today. It's an interesting thing about the importance of highlighting these counter narratives, right? That I don't see them as being counter narratives, although other people do. I see them as being filling in the gaps so we can have more complete narratives. I mean, we have plenty of people who at the time did not own other people to go ahead and make their beautiful gardens, and then we have people who want to use all of that work to make money off of today. I mean, and that's kind of ghoulish, don't you think? It's not just cynical, but it's ghoulish that Mount Vernon and Colonial Williamsburg and all these places will continue to make money, and they'll publish books about it, and they'll make social media posts, and they'll use it in their ads. They will make money they will continue to try to make money off of the achievements of enslaved people, and they're doing it today, and they're doing it in a way that tries to distort the past to make it seem as if slavery was okay. When what we can do is make sure that we can highlight the stories of enslaved people who actively resisted their enslavement. We can make sure that we're presenting a more balanced picture. That balance means that something else has got to go. The exceptionalism has got to go. We need to acknowledge the role of enslaved people and the contributions of marginalized groups. I mean, so a nuanced understanding requires facing the uncomfortable truths of the past, not burying them for the sake of some sort of idealized past that is represented by cherries in a bottle or by pretty gardens that are doing nothing but just generate dollar bucks for the white people who manage and run and earn their incomes from these forced labor camps today. And that's all they're doing today, is that they continue to operate off of all of these things that were created by enslaved people without any kind of sense of irony in that. There's a Bertolt Brecht play from the 1930s about Galileo, and at one point after Galileo recants, one of his followers expresses her disappointment, and she says, "Unhappy is the land that breeds no hero." Brecht has Galileo respond, "Unhappy is the land that needs a hero." I think it is a deep sense of America's unhappiness, and certainly of the unhappiness of the ethno-nationalists, that they so desperately need heroes, and they need those people, enslavers, who denied freedom to others, who wanted to attain and maintain a minority rule government that excluded others, as those heroes.